Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the How to Ace LinkedIn digital event. My name is Natasha and I'm an events coordinator at the CMI, and I'll shortly be handing over to Adam to begin today's event. If you have any questions during the digital event, you can ask them using the live chat box on the right of your screen, and we shall answer as many as we can during the Q&A. Today's session is being recorded and will be shared with you later today for those who book to attend. The event recording will also be available on the CMI website and the CMI YouTube channel. Now over to Adam Owen, Strategic Management Consultant, to begin the event.
Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining me today. And today I'm going to look at LinkedIn. I think we've called the title How to Ace LinkedIn. And I currently am the head of content at an organization called Next Gen Planners. So we provide support services to financial planners to help them develop their careers. And we also have a community, a private social network. So there's a lot involved in social media and social networking within the work that we do. And one of the key things that we spend our time doing is helping people to utilize LinkedIn and to make the most out of it, but without needing to get too technical. So today, that's what I'm going to share a little bit of that with you. So please do feel free to ask some questions along the way. So before we really get into the how-to, it's maybe worth considering why. And I'm sure many of you will have seen a lot of the statistics that are available. LinkedIn like to push these stats out all the time in terms of just how big it is as a platform. And for a platform that is predominantly business focused, then LinkedIn does an incredibly good job and reaches a very large number of people, 800 million members or slightly more than that now worldwide. And the age demographic is interesting. 60% of LinkedIn members are between 25 and 34. There are 58 million companies, and every minute, 6 people are hired through activity on LinkedIn. So that's maybe one of the first things. LinkedIn, of course, is a tool where you can recruit new talent. Or if you're looking for work in a new profession or a change of job, then LinkedIn is a great place to do that. Additionally, then we know from that job searching data that there are 49 million people every week looking for a job on LinkedIn, and 77 job applications are submitted every second. So I don't know how many that is since we started this, but obviously those job applications are going in all of the time. And employees are very likely to share posts from your company on LinkedIn, and far more likely than they might on other social media. So 14 times more likely compared with other platforms. So it is a tool very much for business. Then going down a little to think about how we can utilize LinkedIn from a marketing the business perspective. And marketeers love LinkedIn, as we can see here. 77% of content marketers say LinkedIn produces the best organic results. And brands get much more interaction from live events on LinkedIn. And this is something that we'll talk about as we go on. So if you're an organization looking to promote your brand, then LinkedIn Live is a great option for that. And we'll look at that later. So that's a little bit about why LinkedIn is useful. But let's start looking at how to, first of all, organize your profile. I'm going to think about that so that your presence on LinkedIn is consistent with your message and the values that you want to get across. Then we're maybe going to look at some of the ways that you can produce content and what content really plays well on the platform. And the time that you should be sharing content, that is really important as well, and what to do when you do actually post content. And then beyond that, we'll look at some of the additional features that you can utilize and some of the things that are coming up in LinkedIn as well. And then finally, I'll just talk about some of the tools that you can use to enhance your LinkedIn experience. So there's a lot going on, and hopefully there'll be something that will resonate with you dependent on just how you're looking to utilize LinkedIn, whether you are thinking of it from a perspective of seeking a job, whether you're an employer looking to recruit, whether you're a business looking to market. There's lots of different options there for you. But let's start with something very simple and just at the very basic end, which is your LinkedIn URL. So LinkedIn will have given you a URL, and if you haven't done anything with that currently, it'll be fairly ugly in all fairness. It'll be lots of numbers or something that may involve numbers and letters. But it won't be something that's easily remembered or that you can maybe easily tell somebody else. And when you're using it and posting it elsewhere, then it's a lot easier to have something that is consistent with your message. So very quickly, I'm just going to take you through how to update your URL on LinkedIn, the very first thing that people may see and click on if they're looking for you. So if you find your LinkedIn profile and hit view profile, so you log in and go to view profile, and then next you'll want to select edit public profile and URL. From there, you have the option to customize. So your profile will look like that one there, fairly ugly, and you can then just simply select the edit pencil, which is that blue pencil on the screen there, and that will then open up a box that you can then type in something that's much more consistent with your other social media profiles. So I use a social media profile on Twitter that I've also then replicated in LinkedIn. Makes it easier for me to remember when I'm suggesting that people search me if I'm at a networking event or something like that. But it's also just a little bit better looking than those other sort of standardized profiles that you get given when you first join the platform. So once we've done that, of course, you need always to remember to save. Nothing worse than making the adjustment and then forgetting to save it. So remember to do that, and that is done, and you're off and away to the next stage. And then there are a number of features in your LinkedIn profile, and I'm sure many of you will have looked at these as you're already on LinkedIn, but it might be worth just taking some time to do a quick audit. And one of them is your banner image. So the banner image is quite a significant amount of real estate on your LinkedIn page, and oftentimes these are underutilized. People certainly get more interaction responses if you've got something on your banner image. A standard block color banner image isn't all overly exciting. But what do you put on that banner image? What are the options, and what things could you consider that maybe you aren't doing at the moment? Well, one of the things you can add is social proof. People like to know straight away when they're looking at your platform what you do, and maybe even what awards that you've won. So if you've got some awards or you've been involved in something, then you can maybe add that to your banner image. Contact details, of course. If you've got a web address, pop it there as well. It means that people can see it and people are aware that you are there to be contacted. That really helps. I'm not suggesting phone numbers or anything like that, but certainly your website would be a great thing to go on your banner image. Of course, your logo is great to go on the banner image as well, and something that promotes your brand. And then finally, maybe what you do. You've got a lot of space there, and to actually add a statement of what it is that you get involved in, and maybe even how you help people, that can be really powerful when people are clicking on and seeing whether or not they want to connect with you, and particularly if you've made an approach to another person on the platform. So we've got a couple of examples here of what you could do with your banner image. The one on the right is the Next Gen Planners banner image, and there we've added one of our key phrases from our vision, mission and values, what we go about doing. The other one on the left is from a colleague of mine, Katie Braden, and Katie helps financial planners grow their business through video, and so that's what it says on her banner image: grow your business with video. Really quick, really simple, and very, very clear, so you can straight away know what is being represented when you click on that page and what that person might be telling you about. And that's maybe what you should consider with your banner image. What can you put in there that will really help signpost the value that you deliver? Now, you'll notice maybe that the sizes of banner images are slightly different. That's because if you're a company and you have a company page, then the banner image actually is a little bit bigger. So you get a few more pixels to do extra things with that. So I've put the pixel numbers on there. If you are actually using another tool such as Canva, which we'll chat about a little bit later, then you can see the size that you actually need to make your banner. And that makes it a lot quicker and easier to design that around your particular pixel size. And of course, one of the things that we should definitely do is add a picture. We find that, or at least LinkedIn find that 21 times more profile views are had if you've got your picture on your LinkedIn profile. And additionally, you get 9 more connection requests, or 9 times more rather connection requests. So that's quite significant simply by having a picture. And some people will choose a different type of picture, of course. Some people will look at an avatar or maybe have a picture of them doing something. It's got to be authentic more than anything. What we're looking at is really making sure that you get across to the person who is clicking on your profile or potentially clicking on it, that actually you are somebody that they want to deal with. So think about who your target audience is when you're choosing that picture. And oftentimes people will ask me, well, yeah, what shall I wear if I'm actually putting my profile picture together? And I think there are 3 key things that you should think about when you're looking at building that profile. And these really, work on anything that you're doing in LinkedIn, whether it be your picture, video, anything else that you're posting that has a picture attached to it. Be authentic. It's really, really important. Be you. I and the rest of the team at Next Gen Planners, we don't wear suits. That's part of our core authenticity. We focus on an audience and look to deliver in a slightly different way than maybe the traditional financial services delivery might be. And so we have maintained that, and we maintain that in the imagery that works across all of our social media profiles. Of course, that might not be appropriate for what you're using LinkedIn for. If you're looking for a job and it's in a profession where people expect you to dress in a particular way, then think about that audience. But make eye contact and smile. They're 2 of the simplest things to do, but also they can be really challenging. Actually, in particular when you're doing video, I mean, today I'm clearly looking at some slides from time to time, so I'm not always making eye contact with the camera. But any video work that you do on LinkedIn and you post, it's really great to make eye contact. And one of the key things that we see with people who are posting video on LinkedIn and other social media when they're first getting used to it is that actually you'll often find that people are really relaxed normally in everyday life. And as soon as that little dot starts, and as soon as you start staring at the camera, I don't know, it's like people freeze and all of a sudden get incredibly self-conscious. So practice and take a number of shots. If you're doing your photo for your picture image for LinkedIn, then you can take as many of those as you like digitally. So try quite a number of them. The other thing I'd suggest as well is get someone to help you with that. So get someone else to take the picture, and that can help you focus on how you want to come across. Of course, some of you will get those professionally shot, and there's nothing wrong with that at all, but think about your audience and think about what your audience are looking for. And then you get to place a headline in your LinkedIn profile. And this headline, I often find, is quite underutilized. Many people will put their job title or whatever it might be, but what else could you use that space for? So think about how you could add value and push your message further in that headline section, because it's really important. It's included in Google search results. So if people are searching for something that is in your headline, then you will appear higher up on a Google search. It also appears next to your name in search results. So when people are searching for you, your name and your headline is going to be there. So you get an opportunity straight away to say something about yourself. So you can share key information. Now, we don't want to be typing War and Peace in the headline, of course, it's a headline, but you do have a real opportunity here. And another important factor, that this obscure thing that is often referred to, the LinkedIn algorithm, then it uses your headline to place you in search results. So in particular, if you're out there looking for a job and there are employers potentially in your field searching, then your headline will certainly make a difference. But also, if people are looking for a service or a product that you provide, then LinkedIn will use your headline to actually pull that through in the search algorithm. So it's a really useful tool, and again, one that is somewhat heavily underutilized. So what could we place in there? Well, certainly what you do. Job title is one thing, but more of a descriptor about what you do is often better. Who you do it for, and then why people work with you. So I have an example here from a friend of mine, Stuart, who I actually first met Stuart on LinkedIn, and I engaged through Stuart because of his headline in his LinkedIn profile because it spoke directly to me. And I've been working with Stuart now for the best part of 10 weeks. And you can see what Stuart and the type of people that Stuart works with and who Stuart helps straight from that headline. Helping men overcome gut issues, toxicity, and feel the best they've ever felt. Now, at the moment at which I read that on LinkedIn, I thought I could definitely do with a bit of that. I'm one of the middle-aged executives that Stuart works with. And so when you've got that core message in there, then that is the thing that will resonate with your audience. Now, what's different about what Stuart did versus the other personal trainers that I'd seen on LinkedIn? Well, in the main, the other personal trainers that I'd seen on LinkedIn had said, personal trainer in there. And that didn't resonate with me. It didn't speak directly to me. So if you have a really clear understanding of who your target is, then you can really embed that into your headline. And that can make a real difference in engagement and who it is that is willing to connect with you or who is open to more of your content. Because it might not be that a person will connect with you the very first time they read it, but they may actually begin to follow, look out for you, and then they might start to engage with you and your content. Another key element, particularly when we're thinking about social proof, is the thought of recommendations. Obviously, we will use Google and other tools to build recommendations. And in your profession, you may have specific tools that people can use to refer and to make recommendations or to leave feedback for other people to see. But LinkedIn doesn't allow other feedback from other platforms to be pulled through. So there's one thing that might be missing from your LinkedIn profile is social proof from other people who have used your product or service. So it's really important to begin to build up recommendations if you want people to know that there are others who know, trust, and like you and have used your service. So the way to do this is to start with your connections, who you have worked with, and ask them via the platform for a recommendation. There's a very simple button. You go down to the recommendation section and there's a little plus button in a circle. You can hit that and then you can add the name of somebody that you want to ask for a recommendation and then follow the steps. It asks you to, gives you the opportunity to put in a personal message to them. And within that message, you can give some guidance in terms of the type of recommendation you might like them to offer you. Now, it's always nice to have contacted them in advance. And oftentimes you might do this. You might contact somebody and say, look, I really enjoyed working with you. Would you mind leaving me a recommendation on LinkedIn? And I know if it's anything like me, then when people ask me that, I say, yes, of course, I'd be delighted to. But then we get busy and we don't always follow through. So following up with that conversation with actually a recommendation request on the LinkedIn platform and giving some guidance when that arrives in the way that you actually send that message can really help the other person and make it really easy for them. So if somebody writes a review for you elsewhere, they're a prime candidate to ask if they wouldn't mind jumping on LinkedIn and writing a review there also. So it duplicates that review. For them, that's a simple cut and paste. And if you give recommendations to people, you'll find that they are far more willing to reciprocate. And reciprocity is a really useful tool on social media a lot of the time. If you spend your time engaging with people's content, liking and sharing the stuff that resonates with you, then you'll often find that they will do the same back. And the same is the case for recommendations. And most definitely, as I've sort of already mentioned, is to give them some guidance. The more that people know what it is that you're looking for and how you would like them to structure their recommendation, the easier it is for them. Once somebody's given you a yes and said, yes, of course, I'll recommend you, then you can give them some help, make it easy for them, and you're far more likely to get those recommendations in place. So if you're interested in an example of somebody who does this incredibly well, then Nick Elston is super at gaining recommendations. As you can see here, Nick has 294 recommendations on his LinkedIn profile. And every time he does a new piece of work with somebody, he's a public speaking coach. Every time he does a new piece of work with somebody with an organization, he'll ask for a recommendation. And because people love the work that he does, they're very happy to provide recommendations. But Nick has a very clear process then of following that up, so that those people who say, yes, of course I will, get the opportunity to do so in as an efficient way for them as possible. And of course, one of the things that really can tend to worry people about LinkedIn, and one of the things that prevents the 90% of so-called lurkers on the platform actually posting some content, then is, what content do I post? And this is one of the questions that we get very regularly. People would like to extend their network on LinkedIn. They'd like to connect with more people. They understand that posting content and engaging people is a great way of doing that. But where do we start? How do we actually go about posting content? So let's start with video content. Now, video content might be one of the scariest options of posting content. You are putting yourself out there. You are most definitely, oftentimes people outside of a comfort zone when you're posting video content. But there's a real advantage to posting video content, and that is that the person who might be engaging with you actually gets to see you. And so we begin to increase our levels of trust in a person if we have actually seen them on video. We feel like before we actually ever meet that we know them, and we get to learn a little about them. We can see some of their authenticity coming through. So if you can do video content, then it's great to add that into the mix of your LinkedIn content. So what ways and options do we have? Well, one of the most effective is LinkedIn Live. So as we've gone live today, and the Chartered Management Institute uses the StreamYard platform, that's what we're broadcasting through today, and that's going out onto other social media platforms. And you could do this. You could take the platform and you can broadcast live into LinkedIn. Now, that might sound like quite a scary concept for many of you, and I'd entirely understand that, but the content itself has to be, always authentic. This is an example. Francois du Toit in South Africa, back at the beginning of lockdown, actually started just producing a morning breakfast show, simply because he was, more than anything, a little bit lonely and didn't quite know what to do. South Africa had gone into lockdown at the beginning of the pandemic, and he didn't have an audience, he didn't have a following, but what he wanted to do was reach out to people and engage with people and maybe share some of his ideas and his thoughts and how he was feeling. And so he did that. He launched a thing called, or it was a coffee. It was Coffee with Francois. And that very first show it was a little bit rough around the edges, and Francois would, I'm sure, confirm that very happily. But it got him out there. It got him live onto LinkedIn, and these shows started to build up traction, build up an audience. And that virtual coffee with Francois concept then morphed 100 and odd shows later into a regular Friday show. And his Friday show now generates a great audience and generates significant interest in all of the other things that he does. But when you go back to those very early sessions, then they're not highly produced. They're not incredibly polished. There's somebody clearly just being authentic and talking to the camera. Now he has production, and he has guests, and he has people from all over getting involved. And the whole process has now become much more streamlined. But initially, to produce live content, we actually find you get much more engagement. So you can put video content up on LinkedIn, and we'll talk about that in a moment. But brands get 7 times more reactions and 24 times more comments when they go live on LinkedIn. It's a very simple process if you're using a platform that you can broadcast to, something like StreamYard, which is being used today. And even that is a very simple process to get up and running. If you can use Zoom or Teams and run a team or Zoom call, then you can use StreamYard, and you can be broadcasting into LinkedIn and going live. The great advantage of that is the video remains live for a while afterwards as well. So people who missed it live can then watch it back. And also you then have that content library going forward, and that builds further social proof and credibility because people want to see some of the things you've done before. But then, of course, much of the video format that you will see on LinkedIn is shorter form video. So it might be, as we can see there, one of those is just 16 seconds from Next Gen Planners, that one in the top right hand side. And with those, what we do is we produce a little slide deck. It's simply an animated slide deck. We build them in Canva and they will just run through. We also will add GIF images on there as well, and just build things that just, again, attract attention, a little bit more engagement. One of the key and important things to note when you're writing content and designing video content for LinkedIn is if it's not live, then, if people see that it's 30 minutes long, they're unlikely to engage as much. Shorter form video content that you're going to post in your feed is great for engagement, and sometimes very short format content. Oftentimes we'll run with something that will be a simple to iPhone piece. So it's two camera, but we're using an iPhone rather than any sort of studio setup. And so you can be walking along the street and do a quick post that can then go onto LinkedIn. The key with all of this and all of this video content is to post something that is interesting and engaging to your audience. How can you add value in that minute or 30 seconds of video? And whenever you are posting, it's really useful to add subtitles. So many of us, when we're scrolling social media and when we're engaging with LinkedIn, are maybe traveling, so we might be on public transport, or it might be late at night when we're scrolling, and so we might not want to put the sound on. So if you've got subtitles, it means that people are more easily can find it more easily and can engage more easily with it. We'll also take content from longer shows. We produce 30-minute shows for all sorts of different content and take snippets out of those and post them on LinkedIn. And then in the chat below, we can add links to where people can find that longer form content. It's important from a LinkedIn algorithm perspective that you don't put links in your main post. LinkedIn want the users of LinkedIn to stay on the platform. So if you're posting from your main post and then adding a link there, then that's taking people away from the platform. So the algorithm isn't going to like that quite so much. So post your content and then add a link that you may need in the chat below, in the comments. And in that comment section, then people will be able to find that. But it will mean that you won't be taking people off the platform directly from your post, which will upset the algorithm a little. So video content is really useful and it can get you seen and people begin to feel like they know you better. But of course, the majority of content on LinkedIn is still written content. And a lot of people prefer written content. They prefer to be able to scan down something that they can see the entirety of, pick out the key things that they want. So we need to make sure that within your content mix, there is a blend. And so with written content, as with everything, I suppose, the first thing we need to think about is who is your audience? Who are you writing for? And within that, we're always looking to think about what value is my audience member going to get from this piece of content that I write. Now, it's sometimes useful to produce an avatar, to think about your audience member as an individual or as a type of company that you're looking to reach out to, and then write with that person or company in mind. But how can you make your content really pop? First of all, make sure your messaging is authentic. Keep it real is what they say, don't they? And I think it's so important to think about your content from a perspective of, what you would normally say if you had that person sat in front of you. And sometimes social media in particular, and LinkedIn in this instance, it can be a place where we're trying to put forward an image of ourselves that maybe is the best possible view. It's the best version that we can be. And I understand that entirely. We all can fall into that trap a little. But authenticity is really important. And the one thing that we don't want to do is be so pristine all of the time that we can't live up to it in real life. The point of this is that we're looking to take virtual connections and convert them into real connections. And in that instance, we want to be able to live up to the standards that we have set. Now, What I'm not saying then, of course, is that you should go on video or post pictures or write content, as if you've been out all night and have just rolled into the office not having slept. Be authentic to a point, but make sure at all times that you keep it professional for your audience, and this is really important. Vary the format. So think about what you're going to post. Asking questions is a great way of engaging people. Giving something of value. Adding something that to somebody else's post is really important as well. So we combine that with engaging with others. And the first steps of engaging with other people's content is to give them a bit of a cheer, to thank them for posting it, to tell them that you've really benefited from their post. To share it with somebody else. Or you might actually comment or make a comment on the point that they're making, or look to add something to it. Now, I'd caution here that there are people on LinkedIn who will see a post and then they'll try and advertise or sell something in the comments below. That is generally not thought well of, and it can sort of look a little crass. So what I would say is, if you have value to add, do it conversationally. Build it into a conversation. Look to engage the person who posted in the first instance, but look to add value rather than to sell. Images work really well with your written content. It doubles the amount of engagement of a particular piece of content if you have an image in it. And the image doesn't have to be overly dramatic, but if you're posting something that is real, that you have taken yourself, then that's great. If you're looking for an image that complements an article that you may have written, then just look to select a source of imagery that actually has really good quality images in there. Standardized stock images, they will sort of get lost in the mix, but you can find some really great quality, intriguing images to go with your content. I've put there, don't worry about going viral. And many people will ask me, how do I get my post to go viral? And there's many things that we can do, and we'll look at the times at which you post and what you do immediately after in order to help boost an image through the algorithm and or a piece of content to get people to engage more. But ultimately, what you're really looking to do is to bring value to your audience. So worry about whether or not your post has delivered value. If it doesn't suddenly take off, it's not the end of the world. What will happen is that people who find you later, if you actually keep hold of that piece of content, and if you feature it, which we'll look at in a moment, then they will find that content, and that is proof of credibility. If you've been writing and posting on LinkedIn for a while and not many people saw the posts when you actually put them out there, then people who find you later will be very keen to see a library of content that you have produced and to read back through some of your articles and some of your posts. So first of all, think about making it engaging, and then everything else sort of happens around it. If it's going to go viral, it's got much more chance of doing so if it's an engaging piece of content. And I've sort of touched on this a couple of times. Don't sell, but tell. And so what we're really looking to do is to educate our audience, give them something new, give them something of value. The more you can do that, the better. And we can drive engagement by giving things away as well. If you include maybe a set of questions that they might ask a client, or you may include a PDF or some form of short ebook. There's lots of things that you can offer to your audience that will actually get them engaged. So post and talk about it, and then in the comments below, show them where they can go and find that bit of content. Or ask them a question that they can answer, and then offer to provide that bit of content, that small gift that will bring them additional value on top of the posts itself. And something that people tend not to expect to be the case is what happens with longer articles on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is full of short, snappy articles and comments and commentaries. But actually, the things that get the most engagement are longer form articles. People like to get involved in reading something that can be 2,000 words. So do think about that. Think about blending within your content mix the occasional longer article. When I write articles, I'll tend to keep them 700 to 1,000 words for the things that I write for, and that in itself can sometimes be considered longer form, but don't feel afraid to go further and to go more in depth into a topic and to offer more value to people. And then really importantly, wherever possible, create a call to action. What do you want your audience, the people who are engaging with your post, to do with it? Now, it might be that you ask them a question. It might be that you ask them to share their views in the comments below. It might be that you give them something to click on that will then give them the opportunity to receive that gift from you. Whatever it is, give them a call to action. It might be that you just want them to think about something, to spend some time in the day pondering it. So invite them to do that. But whatever you do, wherever possible, look to add a call to action. And you can invite other people within your posts. So you can tag other LinkedIn users that you know to your posts. I recommend never tagging more than 5 people in a post. The algorithm doesn't like it if you do that. And maybe even keep it to a lower number, maybe 3 people tagged in your posts is a better number to look for. And in terms of other things that you can add to the bottom of your posts, anything up to 5 hashtags and items that will actually highlight what it is that you're posting about. That can really help your post to be found as well. But there's lots of opportunity in the written content space. You can even begin to think about surveys and little questions that you can ask. Of course, LinkedIn has the opportunity to do that. And some users don't like the fact that every 4th or 5th event is a little mini survey that they've been asked to fill in. But these things also give opportunity for engagement. So it's sometimes about how you go about it rather than what you do. And I mentioned that you can create this library of content. So, if your content hasn't gone viral immediately and hasn't been seen by too many people, you can feature it. So it can be there in your profile so that when people do find you, then that piece of content is there. And the featured option is very, very simple to use. Again, you're doing it through the profile area. So you click on view profile, and then in the featured section, you've got one of those circles with a plus sign in it. Hit that, and then it will give you the option of what content you'd like to select. And then just hit the feature button, and that will appear in your featured posts section. So super simple to do. You can update that, so you can take things down and then add new ones. Think about how long the featured post section runs for and what people are going to see on a standard page. So the first 3 are probably going to be the most important 3 that people will see. They're the ones that you'll maybe be wanting people to see and capture. So use those as an opportunity to do that. And then another question that I'm very often asked is, how often should I post? And there's loads of data out there about how often you should post. And of course, we can look at it experientially as well and think about how often at Next Gen Planners we post. But generally, in terms of frequency, the rule of thumb is 3 times a week. You can post more, but if you're posting more than 30 times a month, then you'll find that the interaction of your post drops off. And one of the important things that we, again, want to be really mindful of is the spam filters on LinkedIn. So when people are seeing you in their feed, they have the option to spam that out. They can select within the filters and say, please don't show me this again. And that sends messages back to the algorithm on LinkedIn that you are, over posting, or maybe people are seeing content that is inappropriate or they just don't want to see. So think about your frequency, and frequency, as I say, 3 times a week is probably about right, and a maximum of 30 times in a month will get you the best results. But of course, it depends on what your business is trying to do and the audience your business is trying to speak to. If you have a very defined audience, if you have people who are going to be coming back regularly, who are following you, who are part of a community, then you can post more frequently for the benefit of that audience, because you may be not so worried about bringing in a different part of the LinkedIn environment. But if you're looking to be more broad and to grow your network, then think about 3 a week, no more than 30 a month, and that seems to be the sweet spot for engagement in your posts. The time of day is an interesting one. People have different views on this. Because we run our community and private social network, we can see when our members are actually online most. And for our community, that's around about 11 a.m. most days, 11 till just about lunchtime. For your audience, it may well be a different time. One thing to note is posting in the middle of the night is usually not a great idea. Your content won't actually be picked up in the really important hour after you have posted it. The best days are considered to be Tuesday and Wednesday around about 9 a.m. If you're posting at those times, then that gives you the best chance of people picking them up. Or if you don't manage to post at that point in time, post just before lunch or just before the end of the working day, so that when people are checking at lunchtime or checking in an evening, then they'll hopefully see your post from that last hour or so. But Tuesdays and Wednesdays most definitely the more productive days to post, because of course people are more business minded in those days. Posting on a Monday, people are often very busy and won't be looking at LinkedIn quite so much after the weekend. Posting on a Friday, people are already beginning to think toward the weekend. Now, it doesn't necessarily follow that actually content that's posted at a weekend isn't relevant, but think about what you're posting. Think about who the audience might be at that point. That's maybe a time where you can post something that is a little more personal, a little more authentic. And I mentioned that hour after you posted, and that is a really important hour. They refer to it as the golden hour. And so immediately after you've posted, if you possible, I know it's not always possible, but you should be monitoring LinkedIn. Anybody who comments on your post, comment back to them, either if it's just a thank you for commenting or start a conversation. That boosts the number of people that will see your post on the LinkedIn algorithm. There are 4 key stages that the algorithm goes through in terms of engagement and whether or not it's seeing engagement. And most of those happen in that first hour. So if you can be there and interacting, that's important. If it's a company post, then let your team know that you are posting and ask them to like it, to comment on it, and to interact with it. Interaction with the post seems to be more favorable to the algorithm than sharing a post. If you share a post, then it tends not to expand beyond your initial share, whereas interacting with it, commenting, liking, that type of thing can really help. So if you ask your employees to do that or your team, then that can be really helpful. And also within that golden hour, it's great to be spending some time contacting other contacts and looking at their content. So whilst you're waiting to see who's interacting with your post, then maybe look at some other posts and give them a like and add a comment to theirs. When you do that, they're more likely to see what you're doing and to comment on your post. So again, that reciprocity is something that's really important and the bedrock of social media, of course. And really importantly, follow up. So if people do comment and interact and they're not part of your direct contacts, maybe they're in that second tier of contact within LinkedIn, then connect with them, send them a message, thank them for their comments, and begin to engage with them. So that follow-up is a thing that people often forget to do in the moment, and they might actually be 2, 3, 4 days later, but it's great to do it as immediately as possible. So how do we go about building a network then? When you first join LinkedIn, then you're there largely on your own. And the first thing you can do, of course, is to connect with people you know and personalize those connection requests. So LinkedIn will find people that you know for you from your contacts, and you can begin to connecting with people. But rather than just hitting the button that says connect and leaving it blank, send them a little message. So just engage with them. Joining groups. Not everybody likes groups on LinkedIn, but it's a brilliant way of you beginning to connect with people who are outside of your core tiers of LinkedIn influence. So you can then connect or contact anybody who's in a group that you're in. And so they may not be direct connections of yours. And so this is how you can expand that. So joining groups where your audience will have a common interest is really great. When you are connecting, a great thing to do is send a personal video message. And we'll talk about the types of tools that you can do that shortly. But again, that personal video message that you can embed or upload or send a link to, then what that will do, again, it helps people to really connect with you and see you straight away. And if you want to, you can extend and maybe pick up some of the LinkedIn premium tools. So thinking about LinkedIn Sales Navigator to build lists of potential contacts. The power of Sales Navigator is colossal. It's got huge amounts of data in there. But I'd say only opt for LinkedIn premium tools if you think you're going to have the time to use them and you know exactly what you're trying to achieve from it. And that brings us on to, do we need LinkedIn premium features? Well, of course, LinkedIn Premium will give you more credits to direct message people who are outside of your immediate network. It will help you see who has viewed your profile. If you find that interesting, it's always nice to be a bit nosy from time to time, but it could be useful if you're looking to engage with particular people. You have access to huge learning content, over 16,000 pieces of learning content, and these are added at hundreds per week, so of all topics. And of course, at the premium end, you can access LinkedIn Sales Navigator. So there's some interesting tools that can be had. But again, what I would say is don't pay for premium unless you know that you're going to A, have the time to investigate it, and B, have a clear idea of what you want to achieve from it. And then briefly, before we wrap up and go to questions, then what's coming up on LinkedIn? Well, LinkedIn are about to launch audio events, that's in beta testing, lead generation forms, a thing called the future of skills, which is really interesting, that will allow you to see the different changes over the last few years in terms of the skills that are required in a particular job role. That can be great for job hunters. And also you can do this now for many people. It's already live. You can add your web address into your intro. And so that sits right next to your picture. It's a really nice new feature. So keep an eye out for those, and particularly the audio events live. For those people who don't like being on live video, hosting an audio event for anything up to 3 hours can really help you engage with an audience and be out there live. People can join those and interact. And finally, before we go to questions, how can you enhance your production of content in LinkedIn? Well, the tools that I use very regularly, I use Canva for anything that is visual. So if I'm building posts, then I'll do that in Canva. I'll build presentations in Canva. Canva is a great tool if you want to do anything with graphics. They have a really great picture library, so there's real options there for you. If you're doing video, then you should add subtitles. Vidio is one of the options. It's one that I use, but there are many out there. Video Ask, and there are others. There's one called BonBon, which will allow you to embed video into messages, so you can take quick videos on your mobile phone and send a personal message to the person you're trying to connect with. That's hugely powerful. And then if you want to broadcast live, the platform we're using today, StreamYard, is a great option. So go and investigate those, but also investigate similar tools once you've found those that actually might work better for you. There's so much out there that can really enhance your overall production experience. And that brings us to the end of the things that I wanted to talk about. I think we've got an opportunity for some questions, so I'll take those now.
Thank you very much, Adam. So just to reiterate that we will be sharing the on-demand kind of recording, and we also have a copy of Adam's slides, which he has very kindly given us. So we will be emailing that out to everyone who booked to attend. So you will get those over the next couple of days. So we have had a lot of people kind of share your thoughts as well, that Canva's a really great program to use in terms of design. Now there is a question that is there a best length of video? 30 seconds, 60 seconds, what kind of thing would you think is best?
Yeah, it depends on what you're trying to do with the content. It's a great question. I mean, we put out length of video, anything up to around about 60 seconds. We tend not to go too much longer. If it's YouTube, then 4 minutes and 27 seconds apparently is the optimum length of time for a YouTube video. And that's about as long as our attention spans can go. But we go for longer on LinkedIn Live. So we do 30-minute sessions on LinkedIn Live usually. And then if we're posting something that is just there as a post, then it will be anything from 15 seconds up to a minute usually. And that's just long enough to engage, give the message that we're looking to do, add that piece of value that we're looking to add, and then the person who's engaging with it can either post a comment or get on with their day, but they've seen that and interacted with it. I know, if I'm scrolling through social media, I want to get through quite a lot of volume rather than actually necessarily engage at a deep level with too much when it comes to video at that point. And so, if it's a long one that I'd have to watch back later, then I'll often add it to a library. But then, do you ever go back and watch all of those brilliant videos that you wish you had? And so, think about how your audience can get the message as expediently as possible.
That's great, thank you. So this is a question from Catherine. How can I get over the imposter syndrome of selling myself on LinkedIn or anywhere?
That's a great question. And imposter syndrome is something that we talk about a lot with our audience because we deal with a lot of people who are moving into our profession and either second careerists or people who are starting from scratch. And, as your career develops, imposter syndrome for a lot of people doesn't go away. The key thing, I think more than anything, is to start by engaging with other people's content. So, it begins to get you into the space, but without actually putting your whole self out there. And when I say engaging with other people's content, rather than simply just hitting the like button, or maybe even commenting saying, thanks very much for posting, that was great. Maybe thank somebody for posting and then add your view or opinion to that. And so that's a nice, gentle way of just beginning to ease yourself into producing content on LinkedIn, because that is still content on LinkedIn and it appears in your activity feed. So people can see that you've done that in your activity feed. They can see that you're active on LinkedIn. You're also more likely to get somebody who you've commented on one of their posts responding back to you, which is great. And then, test some simple content. Begin by maybe asking questions. Very few people are resistant to you asking them a question. When we help people to apply for jobs in our profession, we'll often suggest that they put a short video out there and send it directly to potential employers and ask them on a personal video message if they mind spending 15 minutes just to arrange a Zoom call and a chat over coffee about their experiences in the profession. Ask other people's opinions is again a great way. So posting content that asks other people's opinions in a written form, that's a great way of again beginning to ease yourself into it. And then when you post your first piece of content that is the one that is you giving an opinion, then don't worry too much if it doesn't get a huge amount of engagement. Stick to the general rules of thumb. Don't say anything that's likely to offend anybody, but look to offer value. Just think, what value can I give to somebody who might read this? What is the viewpoint? And we all have experiences, so be authentic and speak from your experience. And there'll be somebody out there who will be thinking or wondering or asking the same thing as you.
That's great, thank you. So a question from Victoria. How would I politely post or network that I'm looking for opportunities without annoying my current employer?
Oh, that's a good question. That's a very good question. Well, if your current employer has told you that you're leaving the organization, then don't worry too much about it. You can be really open on LinkedIn, of course, and post everywhere that you are open for work. But if you are looking for an alternative role and your employer doesn't know, then it's more about building your network and engaging directly with people. Of course, there are lots of recruiters out there on LinkedIn. There are lots of people offering job roles. When applying for jobs, there's a really easy apply button on LinkedIn, but always think about attaching your CV, your resume to that, because the easy apply button simply just scrapes data from your LinkedIn profile. It doesn't really give the employer too much. But personal video message is always my favorite option. It's the thing when we're advising people that we find they get the best traction with. And when I say personal video message, it is a case of finding out who it is that you're connecting with and actually recording a short 30-second video message for them directly. So use their name and ask them a question. Ask them if they'd be willing to spend 10 minutes with you talking about their experiences of the profession. It's a great way of engaging with people early on. We tend to find, particularly in the profession that I work in most, that people will not know that they are recruiting until they have met the recruit that they didn't realize they were looking for. So, don't feel, in any way that you can't simply send a personal video message to someone saying, I am looking to join this profession, or I'm looking to develop my skills in this profession. Would you have 10 minutes to chat to me about your experiences? And that can be a really great way of engaging with people very early on.
That's wonderful. Thank you. So we've had a question from Philip in the chat, and it says, any copyright issues to get around when using background music? Now, I know that obviously on this platform, there is copyright-free music that we can use, but is there any other platforms that you would recommend maybe Philip looking into, or something you've used besides StreamYard?
Yeah, I use melody loops for copyright-free music. It tends to be of a pretty reasonable quality, particularly when we're producing video. So oftentimes background music that drives emotion or drives a message or whatever it might be, melody loops tends to be the go-to option for me. I would always say that you must use copyright-free material. There's a small charge for each track that we use on melody loops, but you can extend it and you can manipulate it on the Melody Loops platform to fit what you want, and then you can export it into your video editing, etc. So it's a great opportunity and a platform to do that. If you're using material that is copyrighted, then the YouTube algorithm now will actually look to take that down quite quickly, particularly if you try and use it in the States or anything like that. So it can be a real problem. So always seek something that is copyright free.
Absolutely. So how do you I can't even say that word, differentiate and use your personal versus your business profile?
It's an interesting one because, of course, you only have unless you set up a company profile. If you have a company that you're running, then your profile is all in one. So when you think about listing your present and current experiences, I have a number of roles that I fulfill at the moment, so they're all listed as right up to date, and I'm doing those now, so people can see that. But then we brand our content specifically for the medium that we're actually in, but also for the audience that we want to engage with at the time. So in the details that you add on your LinkedIn profile, explain to people if you've got a couple of roles, but you do a couple of different things. Explain what they are, and then they won't be shocked if they're seeing content that you're producing for one audience versus another, unless they are radically different audiences. At that point, I would say pick one and promote that mostly on LinkedIn, and then choose a different platform that is maybe more suited to your audience to promote something else. So if they're relatively complementary, if you're using the same set of skills, then people will understand that and will respect that you have those two streams of content.
That actually led quite nicely into another question we had, which was, what advice do you have from businesses that have two different audiences? So it would be pick a platform for one audience and kind of focus there, and then another platform for a different audience, maybe see which works better per audience.
Yeah, definitely so. Some businesses will sell really well through Facebook. And so, Facebook may be the place for them, whereas a different type of business may sell through LinkedIn or Instagram. So, think about these different social media platforms and how you use them. It's unlikely, we find at least it's unlikely for us, that our audience will be on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn. And so, we know that for what we do, LinkedIn is the primary platform of choice for that particular business. For some of the other stuff, then there are other social media platforms that we will use. So, think about where your audience is wanting to spend their time.
That's wonderful. We have time for one more question. We have answered as many as we can get to today, but there is quite a lot of them. So this one is from Jenny, and she says, how to work with a marketing assistant on LinkedIn content, but how to make it still sound authentic to the personal voice and brand.
That's a brilliant question. Yes. Oftentimes you'll see, and you'll if you work with an organization, then you'll know what their authentic voice is, and you'll see when they send something out that a marketing person has produced, because it will be in a tone of voice that is completely different. If you're working with someone who's going to produce content for you, there's a couple of very, very basic rules that I'd look to employ. First of all, spend time with them so they really understand your proposition, your vision, your mission, and most importantly, more than anything, your your values. If you haven't actually really sat and thought about your values yet, then spend that time with your marketing people doing that so they can really understand. I don't mean brochure values, the things that we stick on marketing material. I mean the things that you really genuinely believe in, because that will show through when you post content, and so you'll want that to show through if somebody else posts content on your behalf. And then the second rule, check it before they send it. I had a colleague contact me just a couple of weeks ago, and she said, "What do you think about this?" Her business is in a slightly different field, but she said, "What do you think about this? Do you think it would upset anybody?" And I read it and I thought, well, actually, it might upset some people in her audience. And, you know, that was exactly the scenario where her marketing team had produced something that was quite salesy in the language that it used, but that really doesn't resonate with the tone of voice that she uses in the material that she sends out. And so check it before it goes, and, you know, have a system in place where they will run it by you before they actually put it out there.
That's wonderful. Thank you. So that is it for today's session. Thank you to everyone who joined us. We've had people from Nigeria, from UK, all over. And thank you, Adam, for your insights and expertise. Don't forget, if you're a member of the IC, you can log into Consulting Direct using the link in the live chat, and you can find a wide range of exclusive and practical development resources and much more. And if you're not yet a member, you can join our community via the link that's also in the live chat to gain access to our portals. Please do take a few moments to let us know your feedback on today's event. Thank you again for joining us, and enjoy the rest of your day.